going on? What's going on? I'm Eugene Napoleon. This is Napoleon's Corner. I hope everybody is well. Before I get started, please like and subscribe to the channel. I would greatly appreciate the support. This particular topic is actually episode 147. And this topic is something that once I say it, we'll see how many of you either heard this or it was said to you directly, either growing up or even currently you may have heard it. But the topic is what happened to the village? What happened to the village? Growing up, I used to hear this all the time. It takes a village. So that's what I was in reference to earlier when I said you may either have heard that when you was growing up, you may currently hear it now. It takes a village. Well, my question is, what happened to the village? And there's a lot of factors that come into that or that goes into that particular question. I really believe that the community is a big part of any village. So what is your community built of? What is it built of? So there are a lot of factors that go into that question. If it takes a village, and I'm asking in this particular episode, and this is the topic, what happened to the village? Obviously, it leads you to believe that we have a problem. Something is going on within our village that is not allowing us to get the very best of what we need out of it, out of that particular community. So let's kind of dive in and talk about some of the potential factors. I'm going to go back to, once again, when I was being raised as a child, there was nothing that I can tell my mother if it didn't start with me taking accountability for my actions, my words, so on and so forth. But that was also part of the foundation that my mother gave me. So I couldn't leave my house, go into the community as an individual, act out, not act accordingly, not be responsible for my actions or my words, and then go wherever I'm going, act out there, and then come back home like nothing happened. What happened to the village? Okay. If I did those things, by the time I got home, my mother would have already been notified, or there would have been noticed to my mother. She would have gotten a notice from somewhere that I wasn't doing what I was supposed to do within the community. Wherever location I was at, I was acting out and it wasn't appropriate behavior, either verbiage or actions. By the time I got home, my mother would have been notified and it would have been a wrap for me. My mother played no games with that. So the village, because it was built on strong individuals within the community, would let my mother know that I was not acting accordingly. So it goes hand in hand, right? I'm not sure what happened to the village, but I can say this. Let's talk about some of the fundamental, like I said, factors and key pieces. There is never a time where being corrected, being chastised, being disciplined, being pulled to task on fixing and correcting a behavior or behaviors was a problem. Not when I was growing up. It was never a time where that was a problem. So one key factor nowadays would probably be you got computers, you got cell phones, you got all these other devices that could be considered problematic to certain age groups and kids these days that are on social media and all of this stuff, TikToks and all that, these other things, right? But here's the key point, and here's another key factor in that. It wouldn't have mattered if I had those devices, because in my house, we were raised a certain way. None of those devices would have taken the place of strong parenting. None of those devices would have taken the place of what my mother instilled. None of those devices would have taken, the place of what my mother said. Period. Bottom line, right? So those factors that are now becoming problematic within our communities that are going in to these other places, and I'll make it real direct. Let's say what's happening in the schools with some of our young people, our students. I watch it on a day-to-day basis, and I'm sitting back observing what is going on with the disrespect that the teachers, the administration has to deal with on a day-to-day basis. And it led me to this particular question. What happened to the village? The community plays a big part in any district, any city, any state. Your community plays a really big part. Now, if some of the pieces fell down within the community, which aligns with the village, then I could understand why you're getting some of the discrepancies when it comes to each one teach one, and you're trying to help rear these kids and point them in the right direction. But when the expectation of a child is not being fostered or not being met, for whatever reason, there's a lack of accountability, there's a lack of respect, there's a lack of self-pride. So there is a lack of a lot of these things where factors, again, I understand they play a certain part, they play a certain role. I talk to young people every single day, and sometimes here's the interesting part. They will say, man, Mr. N, that's so old school. And sometimes I chuckle and say, okay, respect is never an old school thing, being respectful. Towards others. Self-respect is never old school. Morals are never old school. Having value in yourself is never old school. Understanding that you cannot treat someone disrespectfully consistently and expect them to look at you in a certain manner where they're going to respect you. No. There's nothing old school about that foundation, right? So again, if that's not coming from the community, and that's not a big part of your community, then now that becomes a problem because there is no village. The breakdown in the village is so steep and so wide and so big that there is no village. So then what becomes the expectation for the future of these young people that are coming from that community that has a breakdown with no village? What do you think is going to happen then? That's an interesting question. So I find myself at a crossroads. I find myself worrying about what's going to happen moving forward with our young people in today's society, where the breakdown seems to be any excuse that can be given to take place of somebody else's behaviors becomes more important than the correction of the behavior. I'll say it again. Any excuse that's given that takes place and is more important than the correction of the behavior, we have a huge problem, because now that gap is even widening even the more. We have a huge problem. There is no more time for, I'm not sure what's going on with little Johnny, but that's just little Johnny, let him be. I don't know what's going on with little Susie, but that's just little Susie, let her be. Because the margins are becoming wider and wider, as I just said. We got to somehow fix this thing. We got to bring this back a little bit closer. a little bit closer, a little bit closer, till we are bonded back to where it needs to be, where value in yourself, a good moral code, and understanding that you can't treat someone disrespectfully and it's okay. It's not okay. It's never okay. We got to get back to that. It takes a village, and that village is strong because the community is strong. It's built of individuals that understand the importance of a strong moral code. We have to get back to that for our youth. If we don't get back to that, what do you think is going to happen between the next 5 to 10 to possibly 15 years, depending on the age of your child? What do you think is going to happen? That's what I worry about. I see it every single day. So I'm more concerned about the village and the community and the core values that we have to start instilling back into our children to say, no, it's not okay to curse somebody out. It's not okay to be disrespectful to yourself, to your friends, to adults. None of those things are okay. If there's an issue, we need to sit down and talk about it and figure out what's going on. If there's a problem, we need to sit down, talk about it, figure out what's going on. If there are other factors going on, we need to sit down and figure out what's really going on. Because that gap, again, is widening and it's becoming too wide. It's becoming too gaping. It's becoming too big. And before you know it, we're out of control. And that's a problem that I don't think any one of us continually would want to have when we're trying to bring this thing back together versus further apart. So, in closing, my thoughts, and they're just thoughts, again, these episodes are just conversations. They're just pieces that I like to put out each week. Just little observations or things that I see that we can all talk about. Whether we agree or disagree, it's fine, but they're just topical conversations that I'm hoping will have some type of motivational inspiration on whoever is listening. And I do appreciate all your support for those who have subscribed and for those who are going to subscribe. That's really what these topical conversations and episodes are all about. So in closing, I want to say, when you are looking to build for your future, it's so important to build on a strong foundation. And if your foundation is built on truth, character, morals, discipline, respect, faith, that's a strong, strong foundation. Nothing will be able to shake that foundation. No matter what device you use, no matter what's being said, you'll be able to survive whatever letdown, whatever things that you're going to go through. You'll be able to come back from it because you have that strong foundation. That should be the foundation within your community. That should be the foundation within your village. And that's going to pretty much allow for real successful individuals moving forward. We need to get back to that. Let your village and your community speak for itself because it's built on those principles, those factors, and that strong foundation. If we can get back to that, we have a shot. We do have a shot. So I'm Eugene Napoleon. This is Napoleon's Corner. God willing, I'll see you next week. Take care.